I'm Margaret Ryan, Clean Skies News. I'm here with David Ivanovich. He's the Washington policy correspondent for Argus Media, and he led an Argus webinar on upcoming regulatory initiatives that will affect the energy commodity markets. David, thanks for joining us.
Sure, happy to be here.
Tell me, in your webinar, one surprise for me was some of the data you showed about the relative size of the energy commodity market and the overall derivatives market. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, sure. The International Bank of Settlements has numbers that show how large the over-the-counter derivatives universe really is. And the number is pretty astonishing even by Washington standards. It's $592 trillion with a T.
That's big.
Yeah, $592 trillion. That's the notional, or the face value, if you will, of the total market. But commodities, non-gold commodities, such as oil and other commodities, represent a very small sliver of that. It's actually less than 1% of the total over-the-counter derivatives universe.
Oh my goodness. What represents the bulk of that derivatives universe? Is it currency?
Well, currency is a big one. They have, as you said, foreign exchange. Interest rates are a big one, credit default swaps, a lot of the kind of derivatives that you've heard of, but commodities are just a real tiny part of it all.
Okay. Well, whatever the actual size, you see a lot of regulatory and legislative activity coming in commodities. Let's talk about the regulatory side first. We have both the FTC and the CFTC apparently poised to take certain initiatives. Talk about that a little.
Right. Well, we have the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, is responsible for the futures market. And the CFTC is holding hearings. They have another one scheduled for Wednesday. And they're looking at setting position limits in the energy futures market. What that means is they're trying to decide, okay, we want to limit the number of trades an energy trader, the number of contracts an energy trader can hold in a contract month. The Federal Trade Commission looks at the physical oil markets. And the Federal Trade Commission any day now is going to come out with a final rule that says this is what we need to do to make sure that people aren't manipulating the physical oil markets.
Okay. And there was suspicion last year that there was some manipulation on the physical side. Is that right?
Well, there is some concern about it. It was part of, actually, it came out of the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. And this is language that Senator Maria Cantwell sponsored in that bill. Senator Cantwell, of course, lived through the whole Enron saga, and she's been very interested in this whole issue. So she included language in that bill, and the FTC, since that time, has been trying to figure out, okay, how do we actually implement this language? And it's been kind of a tough haul for them.
Okay. Well, on Capitol Hill, what are the major legislative initiatives you see coming up?
Well, we have a big one coming up with over-the-counter derivatives. The Congress is very intent on looking at the derivatives part of the business. This would include energy derivatives. Just last week, House Democrats, Financial Services Committee Chairman Barney Frank, and House Agriculture Committee Chairman Colin Peterson came out with what they called their description of principles, which would basically laid out what they want to do on a derivatives regulation bill. Now, the administration has had its own plan. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner has a whole proposal that he's going to send to the Hill sometime this week, legislative language. They kind of got out in front of him and said, okay, this is what we want to do. And it's interesting because essentially their legislative proposal largely mirrors what the administration's been thinking of.
So you don't see a huge amount of conflict there between the House principles and the Treasury Department? No,
I mean, lawmakers always want to put their own spin on things, and they're intent on writing their own bill and not just adopting the administration's plan. And they have some questions. They don't know what to do about speculation. That's a big issue that they're still wrestling with. They want to know, there's a divide within the Democratic caucus as to how intrusive do we want to be to make sure that speculation doesn't occur in the markets. But generally, their plan pretty much mirrors what the administration wants to do.
Okay, how about the Senate side? Are there chances of action there?
Well, yes, but the Senate is obviously waiting for the House to act first. Senate Ag Committee Chairman Tom Harkin has his own bill, and it's much more restrictive, frankly, than the administration's plan. But he's kind of holding back and waiting to see what the House does before he goes forward.
Well, how about the market? Are there reactions so far to this within the market, or is there a lot of lobbying effort up there? What's happening?
Well, I think everybody knows that we're going to have a financial overhaul. It really sort of depends on when. And I think all of the lobbyists on K Street in this town are very familiar with financial overhaul packages that are coming forward, and they're very interested in them, obviously, because it affects a lot of people in a lot of different parts of business. So yes, we will. There is a lot of lobbying activity, but I think everyone assumes we are going to have a regulation. It just depends on what it's going to be.
Now, you talked today about the potential effects of particularly the FTC rule, I think it was, on market transparency. Can you talk about that a little?
Sure, yeah. Argus is very concerned about this because what we do is we report transaction data, and we collect this data from oil companies, and this is a vehicle that helps provide transparency for the market. People can see what is happening in the marketplace. The rule as originally written was really pretty problematic. It was actually scaring off companies who would be unwilling to provide data to the trade press, like Argus. So what the FTC's been working with the rule. We filed added our own filing in the rulemaking process, and they have improved the bill, or improved the rule somewhat. We still have some concerns about it right now. We'll wait and see what they do in the next few days.
Okay. Now, your webinar is posted. People can go back and look at it?
Yeah, on argusmedia.com.
Okay, great. Well, David Ivanovich, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm Margaret Ryan in Washington, Clean Skies News.